Command had withdrawn all ground troops stationed on Jolan, since Laramach would happily glass his world and all of its emo palaces if it cut down our limited supply of Space Force troopers. We were better off stopping him from returning to his planet by keeping our fleet in orbit. Some of the population had welcomed us as saviors and celebrated the departure of the nobility. Humanity had forced a much swifter evacuation than when the Askar fled from Mikri's people, so the prince was cut off from his subjects and his main logistical support. It will be a hands-off occupation for now, though we have to decide what to do with Jolan long term. I'm not sure the Vaskar will stop seeing their creators as a threat just because the monarchy is subdued. The Askar would have to make a move against us soon, whatever they were planning. The Girat ambassador had indicated that our enemies fled out to the Birid Nebula, and the ESU was staging a massive attack on the region. Whatever refuges Laramach might have out in deep space, the infrastructure wouldn't be designed to supply the entirety of his fleet. If it wasn't difficult enough to keep his troops away from home and compliant, a lack of food would unravel any military force. That concept prompted a new objective that had come across my wrist display: opening trade with the Dandi. This would provide us with a backup source of supplies, beyond what was shipped from Pluto or grown in the station, and also allow our scientists to properly study vegetation in this dimension. Mikri had told me it was needed to feed the Askar prisoners too, since our food had literally broken their teeth. I was told that Kapal, the creator that my favourite tin can was sent to meet, would be joining our talks back here at the Space Gate. I was a bit put off by that decision, though I tried not to show how much it was gnawing at me. This would be the first time I had seen an Askar face since that incident. Laramach's voice had been a kick to the gut, but standing across from one of those aliens and chatting with them, the first time that brown-furred face, which looked almost identical to Laramach or Tillan, burst into laughter, it'd be like they were in hysterics at my screams all over again. "Preston, are you alright?" Mikri asked, noticing that I hadn't unclipped my harness when we docked. "I did not detect any instances of potential damage to your exterior tissue casing, though I cannot vouch for your interior components. It seems you are struggling to stay present, as Scifi explained, and I am here to help." I shook my head to snap myself out of those thoughts. I had told Mikri to engage with Kapal, and that I wanted hope for a better future. All organics weren't psychotic sadists, and Jetty was proof of that fact. We knew the Askar weren't fond of Laramach the Insane, just from that moniker existing. If the goofy tin can thought that Kapal deserved a chance and was willing to open dialogue, after all the hatred directed toward the enslaved androids, then I could get over myself. I forced a smile, glad that our emotions chart we handed Mikri back at the start hadn't taught him about phony happy expressions. "I'm just thinking how awesome I am. I did a finisher on that ship, Mikri. I held time right in the palm of my hand. Preston Carter will go down as the man that legends wish they were." The android beeped with uncertainty. "Those actions certainly fall outside the known parameters for organic capabilities." "No, Mikri, come on. Your whole network's ones and zeros must have been spinning when they saw that glorious moment. Even my dad will be proud. Quit assessing the coolest shit you ever saw as data. Tell me how you feel about my greatness." "Very well. I have been expanding my knowledge of human literature. You asked how shitty the books I have pursued were, and I will note that I have been reading mythologies of cultural significance. Are you familiar with the tale of Narcissus?" "Hey, I am not in love with my own reflection. Just with the PC highlight reel running upstairs and the pink wrinkly flesh." "That phrasing is peculiar, and reminds me of how different organics are. It is weird to consider that I am in actuality conversing with a biological organ of folded flesh and fats, which is designed primarily to regulate senses and maintain the organism's survival." Sophia laughed, hovering by my seat until I shuffled into the aisle. "It's weird for us to consider that too. We think of the self in much more abstract terms. Many humans believe there's a part of our being called the soul, which can't be measured." "That is irrational. To believe something without any evidence to substantiate it," the Vaskar remarked with a smile, well aware that he'd said those exact words about believing in our friendship. "It sure is, and this one isn't a hypothesis. It can't be tested, proven or disproven. It's non-falsifiable, undetectable. Like Preston's maturity. Fifi! I exclaimed, following the scientist to the exit. Glad you dropped by. Never call me that again. Understood. I won't use the nickname until sometime like tomorrow. What did you think of that epic ship demolition? Me saving the day. The scientist snorted. You want to know my takeaway from that fiasco? Note to self, if you're the only non-soldier on a mission, don't go. Yes, you shouldn't go to dangerous places, Mikri agreed, a relieved glow in his eyes. You should be kept somewhere safe at all times. I don't know if anywhere is safe, Tin Can. The life of an organic is rough. I could feel my eyes gleaming with diabolical intent. We could trip on stairs, hit our heads on counters, or slip in the shower. Building us a shower could have gotten us killed. The Vascar's ensuring beep sounded like a dying hyena. There are too many perils to prevent. You are too damage-prone. I should tie you to a chair and care for you. You cannot fall without your faulty coordination system. But if humans are too sedentary, it also increases our risk of death. You can't win. Say, I wonder if sitting for hours on the spaceship flight over here decreased my life expectancy. No, must fix. I will relocate processing power. More research needed. Sophia heaved an exasperated sigh. Mikri, most of us here have gone our whole lives without anything Preston just said happening. Yet, I added. My friend seemed satisfied that nothing was amiss in my noggin, but my stoicism would be put to the test in short order. Jetty looked terrified of what we might do, however, so I knew I couldn't afford to freak out. It could sabotage the first organic friendship we had. There was nothing that Kapal could do to hurt me, even if he was a Laramac plant. I could see the future, and I would get that vague feeling. I could also punch his head clean off his shoulders, so I'd be fine. Probably. Let's just focus on the Dandi and pretend the Askar isn't there. Mikri will become a helicopter friend if I show any signs that something is wrong, so I don't want to spook him. It's not fair to the Tin Can anyway. I felt sick to my stomach nonetheless, and very much rued the fact that my body's chosen response to fear was always nausea. I distracted myself with the adorable green bird, who looked like a stuffed hen without their spacesuit on. She was wearing a little kimono-type thing underneath, which looked way too precious. The Dandi stood up to Laramac, and that made them all right in my book. Jetty couldn't be afraid of us, since we weren't going to hurt her. I wanted to pat her tiny head, maybe scratch a few of those feathers. No, she was sapient. I extended my hands to Jetty as she hopped along. Want me to carry you? Absolutely not, the Dandi chirped in a dejected voice. Preston kept you safe. Mikri walked alongside me and smiled at the bird. The humans have only acted to protect us, since our species' future was jeopardized without their intervention. They are compassionate and understanding. I have learned much about emotions from them. Enough! I know that they could destroy us without even trying. What is it that you want to take from us? Just please, let my people live. We won't join Laramac. We don't have a death wish. Sophia comforted the avian. We want nothing but to be your friends. No one is forcing you to do anything, okay? I know we're scary, but I assure you, the vast difference in physics bewildered us too. We can't help that we have extraordinary powers here, but we're confused and a little scared too. Do you think we can contend with the Aleutians? Respectfully, no. Well, we're on their radar. They're capable of bending reality itself. They're much more powerful than some species that has no clue about this universe, and is stumbling through the dark just to save the androids who helped us. Our feelings toward them are like you feel about us, Jetty. It's frightening. I can imagine, a new voice said in a sympathetic register. Ambassador Jetty, I am glad the humans were able to bring you here. They are a people of immense moral convictions, despite their capacity to inflict harm on us. It isn't their fault. I spoke with a kind man who was worried about accidentally injuring us, and someone who meant to conquer us wouldn't be mindful of that. The blood rushed to my ears, as I saw a brown-furred alien waiting for us with a submissive posture. His mane looked a bit unkempt, like it hadn't been tidied up. There was nothing restraining the Askar prisoner. I guess that command assumed he wasn't a threat, and that we could take him easily if he tried anything. But these creatures were slippery. There's no telling how Kapal might sabotage this meeting, though he was seeming to help us. I needed to calm down. The Durandi tilted her head in surprise.
You have Vaskar helping you? Who is this?
My name is Kapal, and I surrendered during the invasion of Jolan. I want to help them, yes. If the Durandi stumbled across a primitive civilization, you could easily slaughter them if you wished, right?
Of course, but we would never. We want to see other life flourish.
But you are gods to them. A team of you could kill them. The ability to cause harm does not make one a monster. It's the intent. I feel for these humans, growing up in a universe where they struggle to get the most basic machines to operability. They have many questions about why limitations were placed on them by an outside civilization, which you could help with. Your aid to us saved us once, and these people deserve the same chance. Please, I can imagine what you saw, but don't be terrified of them.
The Creator is correct, Mikri added, while I stood staring at Kapal, legs turning to jelly and heart spasming in my chest. I could feel acid bubbling in my throat.
Laramak has harmed his citizens and yours. An ally that can take him out should be seen as an opportunity for the Durandi to improve your security. You must see that he is more unhinged and willing to threaten your world than the humans.
Jetty fluttered her wings to calm herself.
If they really can protect Tamura, then we'll need the help. Laramak will follow through on his promises. I suppose I don't have much choice but to rely on their kindness.
Done. You can count on our protection, Sophia said softly. We'd like to open trade with your people.
What can we, offer you?
Kapal's eyes widened with eagerness.
Can I by any chance borrow some of your food?
Why?
Jetty gave the prisoner of war a cautious look.
Are they not feeding you?
Oh, no, nothing like that. Their foods, well, broke my teeth. They didn't know. It was what they ate. The plants are just really hard.
Even their plants are indestructible?
The vegetation of their homeworld is not immune to destruction, Mikri noted helpfully. It requires more force than your jaws produce, as biting requires a stronger jaw to match the same output that this dimension would necessitate.
So, those little molars could bite my head off?
This would not be a logical way to harm you, as their mouth positioning does not allow them to reach as far as their arms. I do not believe that humans reflexively or premeditatively attack with the teeth in most instances.
Kapal cleared his throat.
Let's not talk about things that won't happen. There's no need for biased fears over absurd actions that no sapient would take. I believe it's much more important to talk about a scientific partnership as well, so we can understand rather than fear what humans are capable of. Also, they could use help with the portal's effects on them. Many of them have been having visions, suggesting they're not immune to the insanity.
They're dimension hoppers that are being affected by it? So if they go insane, they could attack me.
No one's been violent, though having the Durandi to keep an eye on the symptoms is a good backup plan. Try to relax, Jetty. Why don't we all introduce ourselves? I'm only familiar with Mikri.
The ringing in my ears intensified as Kapal gestured around the group, while the soldiers who'd helped escort us offered their names. Sophia beamed as she supplied her name. Of course she did, since she was the one who brought up the idea of Mikri meeting this guy in the first place. I was a deer in headlights when the alien gestured to me, and could feel an instinctual panic rise up. I remember Laramak just sitting there, watching for hours. Speaking was a task far out of my brain's capabilities. Sophia nudged me. Preston? Forgot your name?
You're Preston? Kapal gasped. I heard about your stay with Laramak. I am so sorry for what was done to you.
Mikri hurried over to me as my cheeks puffed out and I swayed on my feet. My skull felt like it was in a trash compactor. The Vaskar tried to steady me, but my stress response was locking me into my head and waging a war on my abdomen. A burning torch climbed up my gullet, and before I could stop it, I spewed the contents of my stomach all over the android, choking on the repugnant-tasting chunks and struggling to breathe. The robot whirred with confusion as I stammered out a weak apology and collapsed to the floor. I could hear a simmering sound, like a burger sizzling as it was pressed against the grill. My eyes flitted over to Mikri, before I realized with horror that my vomit was tearing right through the metal of his lower torso. My stomach acid couldn't be strong enough to dissolve polycarbonate and steel in this dimension. Oh no. I couldn't stop breaking the poor robot. To my surprise, it was Kapal who leapt into action, removing the shirt we'd given him and using it to wipe the corrosive fluids off of Mikri. I gawked in horror at the corroded, discoloured patch that I'd caused, as did Jetty. I had to get out of here. But Mikri, I was worried about the unlucky Vasco in the splash zone. What if I damaged a component he was unable to replace? I couldn't imagine what he thought about having my biohazard fluids painted all over him, especially since he'd never seen an organic spew out poisons before. I must be so disgusting to him.
Even your stomach acid is a corrosive weapon? Imagine what that would do to flesh!
Jetty screamed. Sophia drew a deep breath. It's a good thing we learned that now. There'll need to be protection standards in place, but we can figure it out. Jetty, it's been a long day. Why don't we all lay down and recharge, and we'll send word back to Tamura after a rest? Mikri, I croaked, as my vision closed to a pinhole. I still couldn't breathe. The last sliver of my sight collapsed in on itself, before I fell flat on my face and laid in an unconscious stupor. At a time when humanity needed this friendship to go through, I had just made a fool of myself in front of the Dandi. If Jetty hadn't thought humans were insane before, I ensured that she would now. It would be a miracle if even Mikri would ever want to interact with this malfunctioning organic again.